And when does the body most effectively remove toxins? When? When we sleep or when we're not eating. And that's called the catabolic phase of the digestive cycle. Because the word anabolic means to build. And the anabolic phase of the digestive cycle means you're eating and digesting. And when you're eating and digesting, you're not detoxing and repairing as much. It's in the catabolic phase when you're not eating and digesting, when you're sleeping, when your stomach's not digesting. I always say the longer you live in the catabolic phase of the digestive cycle, the longer you live. Did you follow that? Yeah. Okay. I want to be clear about that. We'll talk about that if we have time more. Now, most Americans don't even enter the catabolic phase hardly at all. They're eating all the time. They take their car to the gas station, they fill it up with gas. Instead of driving it around now and burning off the gas, what the energy they just filled it with, they drive around one block and back to the gas station again. And they fill it up again. Your car was already full. What happens to that gas? It runs out of the tank onto the pavement. But with a human, if you keep eating when you're not hungry, when you didn't burn off your calories you took in, your body expands. The gas tank is finite and fixed, but not your body. You can get bigger and bigger and bigger as you keep feeding it more energy than you need. So what happens to people is this. They eat a meal and their glucose curve goes up, right? And detox is somewhat inhibited. And then, maybe a couple hours later, they're finished digesting. And they enter the catabolic phase of the digestive cycle. Now, it's that catabolic phase when they're not digesting is when we're going to be living off the glycogen that was stored in the liver and muscle tissue from the glucose we ate. So did any of you guys eat breakfast this morning? You did? Some of you ate breakfast. Well, as you're sitting here listening to me talk, the breakfast is probably digested already, out of your bloodstream, stored as glycogen. Now you're at 450 calories an hour, you're living off that glycogen. It was stored. You're in the catabolic phase. Digestion is over. But for most people, their body is so unhealthy and toxic that the minute they enter that catabolic phase, they finish digesting, they start to feel shaky and weak. They start to feel headachy, anxiety. They start to no longer feel well. And they don't feel well, and what do? Have a little drink of coffee, have a little soda, have a chocolate chip cookie, pop an M&M, snack, right? Have a donut, have a coffee break. They can't stop putting substance in the orifices of their body. That was a joke. See how I haven't labeled toxic hunger there? Toxic hunger? Because that shakiness. See, when people are getting headachy and weak and shaky and stomach cramping, they think it's hunger. Don't you think most people think that's hunger? Weakness and shakiness and headaches and stomach cramping. They eat again. They eat all day long because they feel like eating again because their body is so toxic, they don't tolerate not eating in the catabolic phase. They got to keep eating all the time. Otherwise they don't feel it. They have to overeat calories. They have to stay out of the catabolic phase because they don't feel well enough. If they were truly healthy and their nutrient needs were met and they were not toxic, then they would pass through the catabolic phase, and it's the second half or the third, actually it's the last third of the catabolic phase where most of the fat is burned off your body. If you keep going from the catabolic phase back to the catabolic phase, you're never going to lose any fat, you're going to keep gaining fat. Your body preferentially uses glycogen, breaks down glycogen to glucose first. When your glycogen stores are high, it's when the glycogen stores start to diminish that you start to use more fat. You're still using fat and glucose both for energy, but the ratio of glucose to fat goes down as the glycogen gets utilized. Are you following this? Most Americans don't live in the catabolic phase, and when the glycogen starts to go down to get to low levels, what do you think the body then does? Before it will break down muscle tissue and lose body weight for energy? No, it won't do that. It'll give you a signal to eat, which I call true hunger. You see on the graph where true hunger is marked? At the end of the catabolic phase of the digestive cycle? True hunger becomes a precise computer to direct you to the exact amount of calories you need each day, within 25 calories a day, to maintain your lean body mass. If there's no toxic, true hunger does not direct you to eat to become overweight. You can't put fat on your body by responding to hunger. You can only have put fat on your body if you were eating outside of the demands of true hunger, either because of toxic hunger or recreational eating. Are you understanding this now? Now, if I continue not to eat after I'm hungry, then your body will, the brain can break down muscle tissue to get glucose for the brain. But your body doesn't want you to do that. I flew in here yesterday, drove from the airport to Whole Foods Market, bought my dinner. I had a lot of good stuff to eat I had a salad bar with the beans on top. I had some pistachio nuts. I had some lychee nuts. I had a really good dinner. And when I got up this morning, I'm not hungry. I didn't eat anything today yet. I'm not going to eat if I don't feel like eating. I know when I get hungry, I'll get hungry and I'll eat. Some days I may eat 3 meals a day, some days I may eat 4 meals a day, some days I may eat 2 meals a day, based on how big a meal I ate yesterday, or how much exercise I did yesterday, how much exercise I'm doing today. Based on your body gives you instinctual drives to tell you when to eat and when not to eat. Now, most Americans, though, most people out there, I don't know about you guys, you could tell me the truth, but most Americans go from one anabolic phase right to another. They never enter the catabolic phase. The minute digestion stops and they eat, so you could eat frequently to keep your body, could stop you from detoxing and stop you from going into the catabolic phase. Or you can just eat a big meal with a lot of meat and cheese or a lot of concentrated calories that takes like 3 or 4 hours to digest, right? Go in and have a big breakfast with like eggs and bacon and croissants and Danish and other, maple junk people eat. I can't believe it. It's like the cake diet, right? Everything's cake. Like for lunch, for breakfast, they have a little tiny cake, a small cake. They call it a muffin. It's a cake. Take the icing off, it's a muffin. It's just a cake, right? Or they actually fry the cake, fry it on a pan, and then it's a pancake, and then they pour more sugar on top of it, and that's like oh my goodness, it's like a pancake. It's worse than a cake. It's a cake. Then they make it into a pizza, right? They make a cake out of pizza and they put some tomato sauce on top with cheese and and they have another cake for lunch. It's like unbelievable. Anyway, so we're talking here about they're eating so much food that the digestion keeps going right to the next meal. So you can get around toxic hunger by eating so many calories and so much hard to digest food and mixing together the foods that promote insulin with the foods that promote IGF-1. Did you follow that? If you really want to kill people the fastest, here's what you do. You want to really create a really epidemic of cancer so every woman in America gets breast cancer? You give them foods that are high glycemic with high protein with high biological value animal products in the same meal, so you raise insulin and IGF-1 simultaneously, like burgers or pizza, stuff like that, right? Or macaroni and cheese or ham and cheese, or you give them the white flour carbohydrate and the sugar right with the animal product in the same meal. Now you have the perfect formula to kill everybody in America. That's because obviously the most popular foods or most addicting become most favorable, and those are the foods that are killing people the most. It's scientific, right? It's just clear science. It's basic logic. We make the food that becomes most addictive. That's what people want to eat the most, and that's when they get the most overweight, and we have almost everybody riddled with cancer. If there was a retirement convention going on in this hotel with people were walking by, if I took a man and hooked him in here with a cane and anesthetized him against his will and laid him out here on the stage on a little table and took out his prostate in front of you guys and put it in the Vitamix and looked at the cells on the screen on an electron microscope, we'd see prostate cancer cells in everybody's prostate who's over the age of 70. And we'd see breast cancer cells in all women's breasts over the age of 70. Not just some Americans get breast cancer and some Americans get prostate cancer. Most men with prostate cancer don't die of prostate cancer, they mostly die of heart attacks. The problem with breast cancer is most women who have breast cancer die of breast cancer. That's why it's so important we have to wipe out breast cancer, and we can do it. We have the information to do it right now. We've got to put it into action. What I'm saying to you right now, what I just explained to you, the purpose of that was to let you know that if you eat the way other Americans eat, it's not just you have a luck of getting heart disease or shrinking of the brain with aging and dementia and atherosclerosis or getting cancer, you get both. You get heart disease, atherosclerosis, shrinking of the brain, and cancer, and all Americans develop heart disease and atherosclerosis and cancer. It's just whichever kills them first. You don't know which one's going to get you first. The reason mammograms don't protect much against cancer hardly at all is because they detect the cancer when it's already been there more than 10 years. And almost all women who are over the age of 60 without a mammogram have breast cancers in them. You don't have to need a mammogram to know you have breast cancer. You all have breast cancer. Except that if you ate American food, you have breast cancer. It's not visible on a mammogram, but there's cancerous cells in your body and in your breast tissue. But the question is, can the body kill those cancer cells? Can a healthy body prevent them from being formed? And the answer is yes, and we're going to go into that later this week, but absolutely, and especially the ability to catch and to remove those cancer cells is greater the earlier in the stage you catch it. The later the stage you catch it, closer to when you're near, the less possible effect you're going to have. But the earlier in life you catch it, the better effects you can have. For example, there was a study that showed that women who ate a little bit of flaxseed each day, on a little bit of lignans from flax, they all had breast cancer. They were followed for 10 years, and those who ate a little bit of lignans had a 71% decreased mortality from flax. But what if they gave them the flax before they had cancer? What if they didn't have cancer? The results would have been even greater. You follow me? We'll get into that later, but just get back to this toxic hunger thing leads to overeating, because real hunger, I just want to be clear, is found in your throat. Your mouth and throat. Here's where you feel hunger, not in your stomach or your head. How many of you have ever felt hungry in the right place, in your throat? Some of you. And it's sometimes associated with increased salivation. That's why I keep tripping on my words here. That was a joke. And it's associated with dramatic heightened taste sensation. In other words, it makes food taste better. You ever see a little kid, you give them food, they don't want to eat if they're not hungry, unless you make them a food addict when they're young. But a healthy child, eating natural foods, will love to eat when they're hungry, but when they're not hungry, will rather play. Actually, I would rather play than eat. Well, it's like if I'm coming home from work and a friend calls me up on the phone and says, "You want to play tennis?" Even if I'm hungry, I'll go play tennis first, because this exercise of playing will take the hunger away, but I'd rather do something like that that's fun and go back and eat later. It doesn't matter. But hunger is not so uncomfortable, real hunger. But the point is, it makes eating food much more pleasurable and much more tasty. And you prefer to eat when you're hungry. You don't prefer to eat when you're not hungry, because I can eat when I'm not hungry, but I'd much rather wait. You come and say, "Hey, Joel, I got this great, delicious soup I want you to try. It's like got roasted garlic and it's got lentils and onion and cabbage and sweet and sour. I put some prunes. I put some vinegar. It's incredible. You got to taste it." And I'll go, "Well, I appreciate you giving it to me, but I'd rather wait till I'm hungry. Can I save it for later and eat it, because I'll really enjoy it much more, because now I'm not hungry. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to appreciate it as much." The heightened pleasure of eating when you're really hungry. When you eat when you're not hungry, and when you eat excessive calories, you grow fat on the body. But the fat grows in two places. External to the abdominal wall, which is called subcutaneous fat, and internal to the abdominal wall and around the organs, which is called visceral fat. Which fat do you think is more deadly? The subcutaneous or the visceral? The visceral fat, that's right. You see, because when you lose weight, and you lose subcutaneous fat easier than visceral fat, but then you go on a vacation, you say, "Oh, what the hell, I'm on vacation. I ate healthy, I'll eat." And you pig out and you gain 3 or 4 pounds over that week. Now you put back visceral fat. You lost the subcutaneous fat going into the vacation, and then when you have a vacation, you binge. When you put the weight back on quickly, you put on visceral fat. And that visceral fat includes the high cholesterol-laden plaque that could put you at a vulnerable risk of having a heart attack. Do you guys are aware that most heart attacks occur right after holidays, and around January 1st, right after Christmas and New Year's, when most heart attacks, when the emergency rooms are flooded with people having heart attacks, because people binged on their diet? And they go from one binge, whether it's holidays, whether it's vacations, whether it's a Super Bowl party, whether it's, some other, whatever. There's always some kind of event where it's the right time to binge on these risky foods like we're talking about. Fatty donuts and cookies and crackers and all kinds of things, and snorting cocaine and drinking carcinogens.